Today I'm going to go over a deck that I've had quite a bit of fun with in the last few days. I essentially started playing, this is Token Demon Hunter. I started playing Token Demon Hunter when I heard about the nerfs coming to Demon Hunter. Since I've had a lot of fun with Tempo Demon Hunter, I wanted to see how it played, if it was similar, or if it was just completely different and what it played like. And so I'm going to hopefully give you a guide on how to build it, how to play it. So these are going to be your core cards. In fact, I wouldn't consider making the deck unless you have all of these copies, including Nethrandamus. Really, the goal of this deck is to set up one of these cards, either Command the Illidari or Coordinate Strike, along with a combination of either Wrathscale Naga, Feast of Souls, and then you have other token cards supporting it, Umberwing and Satyr Overseer. All of these are the four cards, your main token generators, that are going to generate lots of tokens so that you can use them to trigger your death triggers. So your two main death triggers here are Feast of Souls and Wrathscale Naga. So often you'll wait until turn 5 or turn 7 or turn 8, and essentially you'll want to combo your Coordinated Strike with either Feast of Souls or your Coordinated Strike and Wrathscale Naga, or your Command the Illidari with either one of those two as well, including using any minions that you had on board to draw close to 8 cards in a turn. This should allow you to apply enough pressure and finish out the game relatively quickly. You want to also be putting pressure on your opponent in the early game so that you can finish your opponent after one of these large turns. Wrathscale Naga is very good for clearing out your opponent's board or setting up a lethal. Feast of Souls is really good to set up for a combo with Wrathscale Naga. So I found that combining Command the Illidari with Wrathscale Naga is more important than Feast of Souls with Command the Illidari. After you've done one or two of these, if Nethrandamus was in your hand, it's going to be giving you somewhere between 8 to 10 drops, and that's when you definitely should be casting this card. This card will just win you games, especially if you can't finish it off with a Naga, or you can't finish it off with what you have on board. Nethrandamus, especially when he summons 10 drops or 9 drops, will just win you the game on his own. He plops down, he gets a huge amount of stats on the board, and not a lot of decks can deal with 3 humongous minions at the same time, especially in the meta now where you're focusing a lot on very wide swinging strategies. So essentially you have decks like Murloc Paladin and Zulok that are becoming more and more popular, that want to go very wide in the format and therefore have lots and lots of minions on board. It's really easy now to set up either Command the Illidari or a Coordinated Strike, and having this in hand is just huge amounts of value. So these are your core cards. I'm going to go over the most popular list right now that I've seen. Actually, take that back. This is my list that I've been running. Let's just go with the most popular list at the moment. So first card we have is Battlefiend. Battlefiend, you really want to have an aggressive start with Battlefiend. It also tricks your opponent into thinking that you're playing Tempo Demon Hunter, and then they can be surprised when you go Coordinated Strike, Feast of Souls on turn 5. Battlefiend, you really just want to get, again, early pressure. Twin Slice is used for both removal and to finish off your opponent in the late game. 4 damage is nothing to scoff at. A lot of people have been playing Ur'zul Horror. It is 2 death triggers for Nethrandamus, and also is a good death trigger for Feast of Souls. Chaos Strike is good for not only putting on pressure and also acting as removal in the early game, but also as a finisher towards the end game when you just need 1 or 2 bits of damage, or you want to draw into your later threats, and it cycles, so it's just all around really good card. Feast of Souls, again, is one of your combo pieces to really get this deck going. Sightless Watcher I found is really good for finding that one piece of the combo that you're missing. It also puts on a lot of early game pressure. Umberwing is very important in the early game for setting up not only your Satyr Overseer, but also putting more minions on board so that you can get bigger Feast of Souls turn. Really, you want to be playing this on turn 2 so that you can set up for a Feast of Souls either on turn 3, 4, or 5. I've found that it's pretty important to usually not trade unless you have to in this deck, I will say that, because it's more valuable to trigger your deaths on a turn when you need Feast of Souls. So try saving as many trades as you can for a Feast of Souls turn. Coordinated Strike, of course, is one of your combo pieces, gives you 3 death triggers. I-Beam is pretty important. This deck isn't built like an aggro deck, and it's also not built like a control deck. It's somewhere in the middle. I-Beam definitely helps you stay alive, is really good in a lot of especially aggressive matchups, and casting this for 1 pretty early on the game will often sustain you for long enough. Satyr Overseer is, of course, one of the strongest cards in Demon Hunter right now. This card will often win games on its own. Of course, you don't have Warglaives in this deck, especially since it's just been nerfed. Triggering it with an Umberwing on turn 3, it puts a 6/4 amount of stats. So you basically get a Glaivebound Adept across 2 bodies on turn 3. So this is a really, really strong card. It is just generally the best card you can be playing in Demon Hunter. On top of that, it also creates more than 1 body for your Feast of Souls or Naga triggers. Naga, of course, is one of your core cards that you're playing with to combo with. This is really one of your main win conditions. This card will often be the card that wins you the game, because 3 damage times, 6 or 7, and I think it's underestimated, how much this deck can come back from being down. This deck, it works from behind and then wins very suddenly. So it's a very weird position to be in. You're not really fighting for board space in the early game, besides maybe your Battlefiend and your Horrors, but then this card will just let you come back relatively quickly. So 5 times 3 is 15 damage, of course, so this plus Command the Illidari is one of the strongest plays you can make, and that's not even including, what other minions you already had on board. And the random aspect is really irrelevant when you're pumping that much damage out. Even if every single one of them went face, that would probably end up killing your opponent in most cases. A very powerful card, definitely the reason you want to be playing this deck. Altruis, I think, is probably in the best spot that he's ever been in this deck. I think when I started playing this deck before the nerfs came out, I didn't really like Altruis. It wasn't very good unless you got 3 or 4 cards in the same turn and it would wipe your opponent's board. Now you're running into a lot of Murlocs, or if you're running into a lot of Zulok, it's very easy to play this with either Horrors, Twin Slice, all these 1 or 2 drop cards, and really only have to have 7 or 8 mana to really get a full clear. Illidari Felblade is kind of suspicious in this deck. It's interesting because sometimes you actually don't want to have the Outcast cost for this card, and the reason being is that you want it to die to either trigger a Feast of Souls or a Naga. So this card is very flexible. It's just a powerful card. And the Illidari, of course, is your other combo card. I will say 6 is a lot. It's often hard to remember sometimes, if you have 2 minions on the board, you're not getting full value out of this card. So ever since Warglaves got nerfed, Glaivebound Adept has been probably the second strongest Demon Hunter card right after Satyr Overseer. It's so strong that you have to include it in this list. It's just the greatest. Of course, I talked about Nethrandamus when it comes to the combos and winning the games. I have usually waited until I can get to 10 cost minions, but it's not always the case that happens. Usually I'll draw Nethrandamus sometime in the mid game to early game, especially with a Feast of Souls. I'll grab it, and usually I'm able to do 1 more combo and play this out immediately on turn 9. In fact, I think it's usually the correct decision to play this out on turn 9, even if it's not a very high cost minion. I've won games because I played this out on turn 9 and got like 2/7 or 2/6 drops. As for the Mulligan guide, it's pretty simple. You want to be keeping Battlefiend, you want to be keeping Horror, you want to be keeping Umberwing, and maybe I-Beam if you're an aggressive matchup, and Satyr if you already have an Umberwing. Satyr on 4 is also pretty powerful, so I would debate keeping it depending on if you're playing against a faster or a slower deck. I will say as a whole, this deck is not the most powerful list in the meta at the moment. If you can build maybe a budget build around, if you don't have Altruis and you just open Nethrandamus, maybe this is feasible to build. If you notice here on the left-hand side, this deck has yet to be played in Legend, and that's in the last 30 days. So this was even before the nerfs. It hasn't been played in Legend. But if you look at after the nerfs, the statistics here, so the nerfs came out on the 15th, which was here. So the day the nerfs came out, the deck did fairly well, and a couple days later, it wasn't doing too hot. And then as of today and yesterday, this deck has been performing very well. So while this deck is currently not in the meta, nor is it really a meta deck, I think this deck is strong and has potential. There may be a couple tweaks that need to be made to make this deck super playable. I think the most questionable cards are cards that don't really synergize well with the game plan. And if we had maybe 1 more ability like this, or 1 more of these, I think the deck could definitely be in a much better spot. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I was able to provide some amount of value to you. If you did like this video, be sure to like it and subscribe. Is that my outro? What is my outro? Close enough. Yeah, it's close enough.